Hello guys and welcome to this new video. So we are going to watch the round 3 of the Fide World Cup 2015 in Baku, and we are going to make a big focus on the game between Veselin Topalov and Lu Shanglei. I wrote the rating of Lu Shanglei because he's the last player rated under 2600 to still be in the contest, and he's playing against the top seed Veselin Topalov. So it's David against Goliath in this match, and Lu Shanglei is with the black pieces. The Lu Shanglei is one of the best blitz player by rating in the world. So I mean, he's kind of a big contester of the game anyway, but his rating is under 2600 in the classical chess. So e4, c5, knight f3, d6, d4, pawn takes, knight d4, knight f6, knight c3, and pawn to g6. So this is the dragon, the fire-breathing dragon. So it's a very ambitious choice by black. I mean, he's playing an aggressive opening. It's maybe a good choice because, I mean, you want to put your opponent under pressure. And, I mean, going with such a sharp line, it's interesting. I mean, he has nothing to lose. And, well, I love the attitude, trying to go for a win even, even with the black pieces. Top of bishop e3, bishop g7, pawn to f3, knight c6, queen d2. The dragon players will recognize the line. It's one of the line I'm playing, was playing with white. Here black goes d5, so this is the big line. And here Topalov is going to play queen e1. The most popular move in this position is pawn takes d5, knight takes d5, knight takes c6, pawn takes c6. Here knight takes is a pawn sacrifice. It's okay for black if white takes d5, knight takes d5. It's very complicated, but black has good counterplay for the pawn. So the most popular now is bishop d4, bishop take d4, queen d4, and queen b6. So this is like the main line when black goes with this d5 move. And this is pretty unbalanced. A lot of games were played, and I mean it's unclear who is better. As usual, white is trying to retain an advantage out of the opening, but I mean it's playable for both colors. Though after d5, Veselin Topalov is playing a very interesting move, which I didn't know, and I checked the database. I might play it myself in future because I kind of like the move queen to e1. So the idea is to get this queen away. So maybe you want to go to f2 later on. You didn't go certainly immediately. But I mean, the main thing you want to do is to use the open d file. So I mean, you go to e1, you protect your pawn on e4 somehow. You stay on the dark square. So as I said, maybe you want to go to f2, g3, h4 later on. And you keep the diagonal for the bishop opened. So black goes e6 here, pawn to h4 now, so launching the attack on h file, and black is still unable to take the pawn, because if you take, the problem is that white goes knight c6, and you threat your queen with the rook and with the knight. So black now goes queen c7, so the pawn on e6 was here to protect the other guy, and white goes knight d2 b5. Here black has two options. He can either go queen b8, sorry, as he played in the game. I don't like the move because I don't like the way the queen is looking. Or he could go queen to a5. This is also theoretical. Pawn takes, and white here could, by example, play pawn to h5 with a very complicated game. So that's example of what could have happened. But I prefer, you will see in the game why, I prefer much more this queen on a5 than the queen on b8. So white is, I mean, I like the white position here. I like the fact that the pawn has already arrived on h5. And maybe when you take, I mean, you can imagine some g4 and queen to h4 coming immediately toward the h file. But it's an unbalanced position. There's nothing decided. He goes queen b8, it also exists. But if a pawn takes, knight takes, pawn takes, and queen to d2. So coming back with the idea to go bishop f4 and trap the queen. And so I don't like the fact that, I mean, this queen doesn't really have good squares. And I'm not sure. The next move for black is going to be a mistake, but watch the bit like, by example, bishop to f5. White might go g4, by example, if you go to this natural square and then push the pawn even quicker. If you go bishop to e6, so all those ideas are to give squares for the king. I mean, pawn to h5, and I mean, this bishop on e6 is not active, and when you play a6, I can go knight d4. So I'm kind of fixing your bishop, closing your diagonal with my knight, but I push my pawn and I open my h5. So I believe white is already much better here. So in this position, I could not really find a move for black. It's like white is already having a certain advantage because this queen is on b8 instead of a5. Would have been much better there. So black goes a6. Now white goes bishop to f4. So the queen is trapped. You don't have squares anymore. All the squares are all controlled by white. So you have to cover it. He decided to cover with the bishop. He could have gone with knight e5 as well. But after knight to c3, attacking the pawn, rook d8, and pawn h5, well, as we saw, I mean, white is way ahead, attacking the black king. It already pushed the pawn on h5 really to open up the file. The knight is pinned, so it means the bishop is closed, and it's still those pieces on the 8th rank. So a clear advantage for white, in my opinion. He went bishop e5, bishop takes, queen takes, and so he didn't lose the tempo, and the knight didn't have to come to e5 on an awkward square. The queen was developed, so this is the high side of playing bishop e5 instead of knight e5. Though now you don't have the dark square bishop, and it seems your dragon is having some asthma. He's an asthmatic dragon. He's not firing. He's not firing. He's not breathing fire. He's breathing, let's say, wine or water or whatever, but nothing as strong as fire. So it's not looking dangerous anymore. And those squares, dark squares around the kings, they look really weak. So when I will play h5 and I will open up the position, I could rip my opponent. And don't forget, Topalov is number 2 in the world, and he's facing someone with rating under 2,600. So while watching that live, you feel it's going to last 10-15 moves, and it's going to be over. So white goes rook e1, intermediate move, queen g3, knight to c3. So it's even looking worse as the pawn is attacked. Black goes bishop f5, sacking the pawn. So he sacks the pawn, but he's trying to find some initiative. Rook fd8 now, so pinning the knight. Bishop c4, protecting the knight and bringing the knight to a good diagonal, looking at the king somehow. Rook a c8, king b1, a safe move. h5, so white could have played h5 instead of king b1. It would have been a bit more precise, but king e1, h5, I mean, I don't want to watch every single move where someone could probably have played better. It's even not sure, especially when the moves are anyway among the best one. Now white is going queen to c3, and look at that. Now the fire-breathing dragon is the queen, looking at his diagonal and threatening knight f6 with some nasty checks coming on. If black goes by example b5, trying to explain that there is a queen in front of rook, you can go bishop b3. No good landing square for this knight, because all these squares the queen might eat, and if you go behind, I mean, okay, it's made by knight a7, if you go knight a7, it doesn't make much. I mean, I can give a check and just move on e3. So no good square for the knight to take a use of this rook in front of the queen. So black goes by example queen d6 and pawn to g4. And well, here white is clearly close to a winning position and a decisive advantage. We are opening all the files, and the king is just going to die with all the diagonals and files open in front of him. So he goes queen takes g2. It's probably a really good move. He's sacking a piece, in fact, because after knight e3, queen takes f3, knight takes f5, rook hf1, sorry, queen g3, rook g1, queen e5. So somehow you can't do anything because your queen is attacked, and in any square you go at, by example, if you don't want to go queen g3 to get pinned, to get this g pawn pinned, you don't have a good square to go at. It means and you cannot go to e4, by example, because of knight takes f5, and now it's the rook attacking your queen. You cannot go to f4. You can go to h3, but here it's met by rook takes f5, and if pawn takes f5, queen to f6, and it's going to be a checkmate coming against your king. So you don't really have a choice but to give up this piece here. The attack on the king is way too strong. So it goes queen f3, just move back to g3 and to e5, accepting that after knight takes f5, he doesn't take back with the queen because of rook, well, it could go with both rook ef1, by example, queen e5, and rook takes g6. And the king is getting really into big troubles. So he decides to go after knight f5. So if you take back, as I just saw, so the rook comes to f1 and everybody is falling here. He decides to go queen c3, pawn c3, and king to f8. So he decides to sack a queen for just a pawn in order to get out of troubles, because if not, I probably realized he was going to get checkmated very quickly. And here, so white is a piece against the pawn. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 against 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 5. But we have a bishop against, and we have, a knight against a knight, a rook against a rook against a rook, and so a pawn against a bishop. The thing is that the bishop, the pawn structure for white is not ideal. We have two pawns on the c file that are weak. We have a pawn alone here on h4, which if we lose, we have a 3 against nil on the king side. So it's not that easy to win. It should not be a hard task, but you have to be precise. Here, white is going to knight h6, a move I dislike. I will explain you later on why. I think a simple move like knight g3, keeping 6 simple. Don't forget that white already won the game. One of my trainers used to tell me, if you won the game once, don't try to win it twice. Which means if you achieve the winning position, don't go into insane tactics, risking to lose the game and calculate long lines, taking the risk to lose it. So it meant if you won the game once, you should be able to win without any tactical difficulties and lines. And the move knight g3 is all about that. By example, black goes knight to a5, attacking the bishop now, and we could simply go bishop to d3, rook takes c3, and here knight h5. It's an easy line, because if pawn takes bishop h7, this is not tactics. It's one move tactics running rook g8 checkmate, so f6 to protect, and rook g8 taking the rook. So it means after knight takes h5, he cannot take back the knight, and we are just a piece for a pawn. So this is absolutely winning for white. And if you don't take the pawn on c3, again, it's still a piece against the pawn, and it should not be too hard to win. It's knight c4. I even didn't watch that, but I believe they even move like knight e4, if I'm not mistaken. It's a piece up, come on. I cannot analyze that. The computer is giving only +1, but I can't believe it's hard to win. I just can't believe it. So, it's maybe knight g3, maybe not the best move. In fact, the move that Topalov is playing, knight h6, is the best one. But look, the reason why I don't like this move, the computer loves it, but human being doesn't love it at all, because the knight now is trapped. It doesn't have any squares to go away. So it means if you cannot win the f7 pawn and somehow go away, you might just end up losing a piece. So Lu Shanglei played pretty quickly knight e5, and now he's getting Veselin into trouble. So he's threatening knight f3, and he's threatening the bishop. Now if you play rook takes e5, the simple move, I would say, he plays rook takes c4. and your knight is trapped, and the reality is that you cannot save it. Rook f1, threatening the pawn, rook d7, and my next move is king g7 and king takes h6, and somehow you cannot save it. In fact, white already might have to fight to keep the equality. So you cannot take the knight. So you can go either bishop b3, which would have been made by knight c4. If knight f3 here, it's a bad idea because there are some knight takes f7, threatening the rook, and then we come on the open file. Don't forget we'll have a discover. So you don't take, sorry. After bishop e3, you don't take. Go knight c4, cutting the connection between the knight and the bishop. White goes, by example, king c1, rook d7, and rook ef1, and somehow white must be able to save its knight. Though, as I said, it's really tactical, and it's not something you wanna get with white. I mean, you really got into complication, even if it's working, and the computer sees that. For human beings, really hard to play. So bishop b3 an option, not a bad move at all, but I mean, it's really just good for some very complicated reason. So white goes bishop f7. Now, if black goes knight f7, maybe what Topalov hoped for, white is going rook ef1, pinning the knight. Black goes rook d7 to protect it, rook g6, and now the next move, if you go rook c7 to defend your knight, is rook g8 check and rook f7. And in fact, you have no way to stop this rook g8 check, winning the knight on the next move, cutting the connection between the rook and the king. So knight f7 not playable. So black goes knight to f3. And here it seems its situation is absolutely crazy, but at the first sight you think white is a piece up. I mean, there is this little fork, but there should be an easy win here for white. And in fact, it's not available, it just doesn't exist. At the first sight you would really think so, but it just doesn't exist. Now white goes bishop g6, black goes knight e1, and the only move here to keep an advantage, a real advantage, is bishop takes h5, trapping the knight. Black goes rook to c5, threatening your bishop. You go bishop e2, rook e8, and rook takes e1. And here somehow, after rook e5, so the bishop is pinned, you have rook f1 check, and you have time to get your bishop away. Though black could go king to g7, knight to g4, and rook takes c3. And well, white maintain a good advantage, but it's not 100% sure he's going to win the game, as there was some question how to free the rook. Also, you have to find a very long tactical line to win this one. So he didn't find this bishop h5 move, pretty hard one, you should agree. He goes rook takes c1. Now black goes king to g7, threatening both pieces. White goes bishop f5. So now if you take the knight, I take your rook, and I go rook e6, rook e7, and rook takes b7 with a good endgame. So black can't take the knight on h6. He goes rook c6, and he's still playing on the fact the knight is trapped because this f5 square is occupied for the moment, and all the other squares are unavailable for black, for white. So white goes rook e7 check. Now if you take the knight, I think you find this one. Rook h7 checkmate. So black goes king f8, rook f7 check, king e8 is forced, the only move. Rook to h7, protecting the knight. Rook d1 check, now black is going for counterplay. Rook b6 and king a3, so this is forced, and now you see that the rook is cutting the king, and if we could bring this rook on the a5 square, this would be checkmate. So black might have at some point some interesting threat. If you go rook d5, white goes king to a4, rook h6, rook h6, rook f5, and here, due to the activity of the king, I believe that white is better. He's a pawn up even if it's double pawns, and the white king is well placed, so king b4, pawn c5, pawn c4 might arrive, and white is at least applying some pressure against black here. So he doesn't go rook d5, he goes rook d6, attacking the knight again. The knight is always a weird piece for white. Rook h8 check, king e7, forced, only move. Knight g8 check, now king f7. Look, this knight and the rook came to the starting squares of black. White goes pawn to c4 here. A tricky move, threatening c5. And this is a fork. Black goes rook d6, threatening the pawn. Bishop d3. King g7. So finally black is able to force white giving up the knight. And white goes rook d5. So what do we have now? Black is an exchange up, but white has 2 pawns for that. So the position is pretty equal. It's hard to see how any player will win. Though white seems to be able to apply still some pressure because the black king is far away from the action on the king side and still has to take care of this pawn on h4. So, I mean, white's still playing for a win. Rook c7, h5, king g7, c5, so expanding the pawn structure. Rook b1, keeping the king on the bad square. c4, rook h1, having a look at the pawn. King b4, rook h2, a4, king h6. So white was forced to push the pawns. Now the king is taking care of this pawn. Rook king a5, rook b2. Of course, you don't want to see this king landing on b6. This would be a disaster for black, at least that early. Bishop e4, rook b3, waiting move, rook e5, rook b2. So wait, you have to show me what you will do next. c6, pawn takes. So now if white goes king a6, black goes rook b4, pawn a5, rook c8. Might have been a way to continue, but it's close to what we will see in the game. The white could have continued like that. So he goes rook e6 check, king h5, rook takes c6, so winning a first pawn. Black is keeping 2 rooks on the board. It's always a good thing to keep more rooks in the board when you are defending. Bishop d5. So now white is winning the pawn on a6, and what black has to do is to bring back this king to the play. And he has time to do so. So king g5, rook a6, king f5, bishop c6, king e5, sorry. So the king is coming back. And in fact, white can't do much in this position as we still have 3 rooks on the board. We would need to exchange a pair of rooks to have better chances, but it's not possible. It's king d6, rook c7. I mean, now black is coming back to defend with its king. a5, finally pushing the pawn, but you cannot push that further because your king is blocking the pawn. Rook h7, rook b8, rook a2. So now black is really attacking the a5 pawn. Rook b6, rook g7, rook c6, and player agreed to a draw. In fact, black could even win the pawn now with king b4 and able to win the pawn on the next move. But this is I mean, even a king and a bishop against a rook is a draw, so it's pretty easy to make a draw all the time for the white pieces as well. So no risk for any players. They both agree to a draw, and well, it will be interesting tomorrow to see what happens because Topalov blown a very good chance at the mean game. Just showing you again the position he had. He was a piece up, and if he just go knight g3, I don't believe Lu would have been able to complicate the position that much, and with a piece up in the endgame, even if it's for 2 pawns, Topalov must have been able to convert. So he played with fire, and Lu burned him. So interesting to see how he bounces back tomorrow for the next game. So we are going just to watch 2 games today. It's already late, and yesterday we had the chess.com streamer contest, and I had a few chess lessons. So a long time at the office. I can't stay forever. So let's watch quickly the game between Grichuk and Elianov. This is a Zeitnot. Both players really short on time, especially Grichuk. I mean, he's well known for that already. So Grichuk goes rook a2. Here is going to push the a pawn, while black is going to try to organize some checkmate net for the counterplay. So queen e1 check, king g2, pawn to f4. So we wanna go pawn to f3. Grichuk goes a6, I don't care, pawn f3, king h3, and rook to g6. So the white king is in a weird situation while white is just 2 moves away from glory. Here, Grichuk is playing king to h4, running away with the king, and this is he's missing the win with this move. He could have played a7, but he had seconds on the clock, so it's really hard to see that. I mean, it's not really hard if you have like 3 minutes even, but with 45 seconds, it's hard to find a7. It's the 38th move of the game, because after queen f1, king h4, queen to g2, which Grichuk probably was scared of, he has the move g3. And here, you know what? The queen is too far away to come back, and white is going to play a8 queen at the next move, and queen g8 checkmate, and black needs a couple moves to make troubles for this white king. So this is game over. So after a7, here instead of king h4, black has absolutely no chance to keep the attack on, and it's checkmate in 2 moves coming. Winter is coming for black in the net. Grichuk doesn't see that. He goes king h4. Sorry, he goes king h4. Black goes queen to b4. Now queen to b4 is a decent move, though he could have played. Wait a second. He could have played pawn to e3 as well, with the idea after queen takes, pawn takes f2, and rook f2, and this is a very unclear position. But with the king on h4, black is probably able at least to make a perpetual check. So he didn't go this move e3, he goes queen to b4 instead. And now white is missing another win on the move 39. The win he misses is really beautiful, that's why I'm showing that. I don't want to be like a Grichuk basher about this this time trouble, just very elegant. White can play here queen f5, and after pawn to e3 check, he has the very elegant move, I hope you find that at home. Here king to h5, and the king and the queen, a bit like in the game between Nigel Short and someone else, I don't remember the name of the other guy, when he brings the king to h6 to produce the checkmate. Here is the king and the queen pinning, the queen pinning the rook, and the king coming to help him to win the rook back. And after a move like queen d6, you just go pawn a7. And black cannot produce checks because it cannot come to attack the king as the rook would be fallen. So white is totally winning here. So after queen b4, Grichuk understandably misses that. King to h3 back. And now black goes rook to g5, queen f7, and queen to c5. And now this king is in real danger because black couldn't force the 5th rank. No time to push the pawn as the checkmate is threaded. g4 is the only move. We are outside of the Zeitnot already. Black goes queen to c1, coming from behind. Pawn a7, pawn h5. White is forced to give up the queen. You cannot do anything else because the threat is pretty simple. Queen f1 check. If you do like a8, queen, you might be happy to have 2 queens on the board. It's good looking. But after queen f1, king h4, rook g4, king h5, and queen h3, your 2 queens are not really useful because it's a checkmate. So you can't go this way. You have to give up the queen. Queen takes h5, rook takes h5, pawn takes h5, queen c8 check, the only move because you need to come behind the pawn to stop it. Queen c8, king g3, queen a6, and rook to a6 to cut off the king, and the game is not over. In fact, the only winning plan for black is to come with the king to b7 and then to kick away the rook and then to bring the king up. So this is the only plan for black. Black goes king g8, white goes pawn to b4, king f8, king f4, king to e7, and here white should have tried pawn h6, pawn takes h6, rook takes h6, with the idea to stop the pawn like that, but it would probably not have been enough. So king d7, rook a6, king c7, king e3, king b7, rook a5, and try to stay like that. King c6, and pawn to h4, trying to push up the pawns, and maybe black would not have been able to win, as the pawn is really quickly running now on the h file, and when you come back with the queen on the other side, I mean, white is going to go now, he's not going to push the pawn because it's going to be lost, but he's just going to play rook a6 and play waiting move with the king, and it's not clear how black could win the game. So it still needs to be analyzed better if h6 is after king f4, king e7, sorry, if h6 is getting white the draw, but it's something that has to be analyzed and see, because it's just a question of tempo and of precise moves. If white can keep half a point by launching the other pawn. Instead of that, white goes king e3 and it's too passive. King d7, king d4. So white is not playing anything. King c7, king e3, king b7, rook a5. So he thought he just needs to do that to defend, but after king b6, rook a3, so playing more waiting moves. So he thinks like my a7 pawn is here and it's enough. Black can't do anything, but the problem is that king c6, rook a5, king d6. Now if you go rook a3 back, black goes king e5, rook a5, and queen d5, threatening the checkmate. So you cannot play waiting move with the rook because you let the king get in. And if you go queen d4 as played in the game, it's made by queen d5 check, king e3 to go away, and king e5, threatening the checkmate, and white can do anything. If you go by example rook a3, it just goes queen d4 checkmate. And if you would have gone king to c3, it would go queen c4 check, king b2, queen takes b4, and queen takes to a5, stopping the pawn and winning the game. So really, at this point, I mean here, it seems Grichuk just didn't understand that black has a winning plan if it goes to attack the rook and comes with the king like that. He just didn't realize the danger, and that's the reason why he didn't make the pass pawn, because if you would realize that, you just made an h pass pawn and black is too weak, too slow to make that. As we saw in this long variation. I think if you don't come back with the king, if you would just wait with the king like that, is that white is winning by making a queen, decoying your queen and making another one on a8. So black really has to keep the king on the king side to bring back the king on the king side, and keep the queen on the queen side to defend this pawn from promoting. So I hope this explanation of this endgame was clear enough. I say thank you very much for following the Fide Chess World Cup with me. I will be back tomorrow for some new games. I think we'll have some interesting ones. I wanted to make a review today of the game between Grande Zuniga and Vostasek, but really I have no time to make some analysis for this game, unfortunately. But I hope Grande Zuniga tomorrow will hold with black, because I really want him to make some results. He's a cool Peruvian player. So see you tomorrow. Don't forget, you can like the videos, share the videos even better. or subscribe if it's not already done. So thanks for watching a lot. Have a nice day. See you tomorrow. Bye.